In 2009, a Japanese computer whiz invited some online acquaintances to mine for virtual coins. Solving tough math problems with your computer would earn you these bitcoins. But 4 years later, a very strange thing has happened. These virtual coins, all told, are worth more than $1 billion real dollars. They were always meant to have some real-world value, but look at this chart. In the last couple months, their value has absolutely skyrocketed. Why has it happened? Is it sustainable? And what, again, exactly is a Bitcoin? Anthony Faiola has been working on those questions from our bureau in London and joins us now by Skype. Anthony, thanks for joining us.
Not at all. Thanks for having me.
So I know this is a simple question with a very complex answer, but how exactly do these coins work? Where can you use them in the real world?
Sure. Well, there are basically two ways to get a Bitcoin, which are essentially numerical keys embedded in a network, right? You can mine them from a Bitcoin network by deciphering computers' codes, right? I mean, you have to solve a mathematical problem. But you need enormous computer power in order to do this. And it's becoming harder and harder to do because the network is designed to make fewer and fewer of them as time goes along.
And each coin's worth more than $100, so there's a lot of incentive for people to be trying to solve these problems.
Absolutely. You know, and in addition, though, so what most people are doing is they're buying them online from sellers. And to do that, all you need to do is download a virtual wallet, as they call it, and then find someone who wants to sell you a Bitcoin.
Do we have any sense of why it's risen so precipitously in the last few months?
There's a lot of reasons why, and it could be a combination of them or none, frankly, because this thing is so opaque. But basically, you know, to start with, last December, the number of Bitcoins, new Bitcoins that are being generated, actually began to decrease. So there's less of them in the system, right? But couple that with increased demand. And the demand is coming, some say, from the fact that we recently saw bank seizures in Cyprus that have turned off some European depositors on the euro and, frankly, using regular banks. And so they're looking for alternatives, and Bitcoin offers them one.
There are also some economic reasons to use Bitcoins. Unlike a credit card or selling something on Amazon or what have you, there are no fees, right?
Well, exactly. I mean, and basically you can look at this whole thing as either a virtual gold mine or a massive cyber bubble, right? I mean, you can hold on to these things, and a lot of people that own them are doing just that. I mean, they're afraid to even spend them now, frankly, because they fear that the price is just going to keep on going up and up.
These transactions are almost entirely anonymous, and that has some implications as well.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the big concerns that you see by regulators and others that are following this is the fact that it's being used by people to go into the black market underworld and these back alleys of the internet in places like Silk Road, where you can buy heroin or you can buy marijuana, et cetera, in a very anonymous way. And Bitcoin lends itself to that because essentially all you see are a series of numbers that indicate a user and a series of numbers that indicate a buyer, right? And you don't know who's behind either one, which is what grants you the kind of anonymity you need to proceed with a transaction like that.
We've been showing clips from this very slickly produced video that attempts to explain Bitcoins. There's a very high-end website. There's someone behind this whole thing. Who is behind the Bitcoins?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, nobody quite knows. I mean, there's a bunch of original users that have a store of Bitcoins, and you know, they are, for the most part, still largely anonymous.
So this is sort of an economic thing, but it seems to be like a social or cultural thing just as much. You followed this guy, Jonathan Harrison, who uses Bitcoins and seemed like quite a character. And maybe there's a link between him being a character and him advocating Bitcoins.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I mean, because basically there is a philosophy behind Bitcoin that is quite anti-government. And, you know, it's not issued by a central bank. It's not backed up by any nation. It's not manipulated by any government political policy. So that has an attraction to both the very right wing and to the very left wing, who both distrust government in the way that it works. So in Europe in particular, you've seen it manifest itself through squatters and communes of people who have been drawn together by supporting Bitcoin. But in the United States, you've also seen libertarians embrace this as the currency of cause and something that's free of the hands of government. I think there is a certain level of gambling that's involved in this, and it's not any coincidence that a lot of the people, well, at least some of the people who are involved in these projects, are people who have a history of doing online gaming and online poker playing because they're used to taking these kinds of risks and they enjoy the risk. So to some extent, whether they hold or buy, it's like a gambler playing poker. That's exactly what's happening.
Anthony, before we started shooting this, you said the more you've learned about this, the more questions you've had, and I think I can now relate. But thanks for answering many of those questions and getting us up to speed on this thing.
Not at all. Thanks again.